I honestly can't take these flying fish riders seriously, nor can I the macro pirates, fishmen guys, or this Duval, but hey, it's okay.
One Piece Chapter 493. You know me?
What, you mean like you're down with OPP? Yeah, you know me? Definitely getting action-packed and fun and action-heavy. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, and I'm here to bring you another review on the awesome and flying fish-filled macro gang-ridden tale that is One Piece. Now, of course, following the events of the last chapter, we saw Kami and Papagu go and jump in to go and rescue Hachi and jump right into the trap of the macro gang and the flying fish riders, all commanded by Duval. And the Thousand Sunny was getting ready to depart and turn around and go back when they decided at last minute. Luffy, of course, gave the order to Zoro to, cut down the cage that Hachi was in, and of course to save them, Kami and Papagu and everything else, and everybody was getting prepared and ready for a fight. This was definitely a fun throwdown fight. I look at it as like a fun chapter. I can't really take the flying fish riders too seriously. I can't really take this Duval guy too seriously. I don't know what it is about him. Even this macro gang looks like a hapless trio of idiots. Just kind of looks like the Three Stooges with like fish lips and gills. That's just my particular opinion and take on it so far. They may become more menacing and threatening at some point farther into the arc, but right now they kind of seem like just sort of some shitty B-grade, villains or characters just to kind of go and fill some gap in some time. So I almost look at them as like like the Foxy Pirates. You know what I mean? A bunch of goofballs. Very cool looking designs, not very cool characters though. That's just me though. But anyway, so immediately we wind up getting very close in the beginning of the chapter. We get kind of what I thought was a kind of a neat, almost ironic thing, the irony in it. Zoro wound up facing off against Hachi way back in Arlong Park, and now Zoro actually winds up going and cutting down his cage and freeing Hachi, and at one point they're actually fighting back to back, which is kind of cool, And it's so funny because Hachi's like, hey, thanks, Roronoa, you're a really good dude, and he's like, yeah, it was Captain's orders, idiot. Just like when he went and he saved Smoker. Zoro, in his mind, I think, is he can just be very cold-hearted. It could be, too, one of those things where he just uses that Luffy gave him that command, or that captain's orders as an excuse, and maybe he really is a softie inside. But I think it's kind of to try to show you, like, hey, listen, dude, I only did it because I was following orders. Otherwise, I would have let your ass die. I don't know if that's the case or not. I think that Zoro, I have a sneaking suspicion that he has a bigger heart than that, but that's just me, again. So, as the chapter progresses, we wind up seeing a ton of great action stuff. Luffy winds up, he's so enamored with these flying fish. He goes, and at first he's like, who can catch the freshest fish? He's immediately thinking food. He goes and uses his stretching powers, obviously, to go and grab onto one of the fish. These fish riders are actually people, or fishmen, or whatever, that are actually riding on fish, these flying fish riders, hence the name. So anyway, he goes and gets on this one, and he's riding, and then he goes and pulls the dude off, and he's like, yeah, I'm riding. And then they get commands from Duval, obviously, because you see Duval go and say, dive. Thing dives into the water. Luffy, of course, is, completely useless when he's underwater and actually seizes up and everything because of his devil fruit powers. So then you go and you see in the next scene, which I thought was funny and just a good comedic nod, the other devil fruit users on the ship would be, of course, or they have devil fruit powers, would be, of course, Brook and Chopper. Those two dumbasses jumped in after him, and they wound up having to rescue all three of them. And if I think it's Frankie that's trying to explain, he's like, listen, man, we're in the middle of a battle. Can't be doing this shit, And Luffy's like, oh, sorry, I just wanted to check what it was like. So we do get to see also in this particular chapter, we get to see Brook in action a little bit, which I thought was nice. He wants to be a credit to the crew. He wants to be a part of the crew, wants to be a helpful, useful member of the crew. And he winds up doing this crazy-ass, like, 50-foot jump in the air, and then winds up doing this this humming, not a humming slash, but it's a lullaby parry is what it is. And he goes in and just sort of, like, whips out, like, music, I guess, that basically this lullaby goes and puts people to sleep. And then they go and they show down on the ship, and you've got Chopper and Luffy falling asleep too. The two goofy ones that are gullible and fall for everything, Anyway, and he winds up using that to his advantage, Brook does, to go and take out these flying fish riders. Duval actually goes in at one point and says, I'll pay $1 million in medical expenses to do, like, pretty much like a kamikaze type bomb where you go and one of his bigger flying fish riders basically just comes, not even steering, hands off the steering, is pretty much just going to like crash and burn like a kamikaze pilot in World War II to just go and take out the ship and the Straw Hats on it. As he's coming towards them, though, Luffy and Sanji wind up teaming up, which was kind of neat. You haven't really seen much of that, if at all, that I can recall. And Luffy kind of goes and like throws Sanji up towards him, and then kind of balloons himself up as well, so they can take the impact of this guy. Because what they're explaining is that a body falling from a certain height, because if you've ever seen anybody like jump out of a window or something like that, and they like land 10 stories down or whatever, they completely just smash a car or even into concrete and stuff like that. It's because the force that picks up, obviously, as the speed increases, the force of a 150-pound person, after a certain amount of speed is added to that, becomes like a 1,500-pound person. And, of course, so on and so forth. It only increases. So it's very cool to go and see something like that, because the velocity that this thing has coming at him can pretty much take out the ship. And Sanji not only goes and gives him this beautiful double-page, not even a double-page, a single-page spread, I guess you would call it, a single page where he just goes, BAM! And he's nailed him, and Luffy's behind him, blown up, trying to, I think, stop that force as well from coming at him. And anyway, tragedy averted. They wind up doing a good job of going and being able to divert that particular character from hitting, the ship. We then get, and shortly after that, as again the shit's hitting the fan and everything else, and Luffy's trying to grab onto various fish riders that are going by, Luffy actually winds up going and smashing into and crashing into the area, the room that Duval is hidden in. Duval has his helmet and mask off, and if you remember, for the last few chapters, since he had been introduced at the end of the last, volume, he talked about this person that ruined his life and how he knows him and blah, blah, blah. And we don't know what connection they have or who this character is. Now that we've seen him, I can't think of any character that really kind of matches his just overall physique and description. So I'm kind of scratching my head over here trying to figure out who it is, right? I'm sure it's going to be revealed soon enough. But Luffy lands and seems to recognize him. And he's like, oh, geez. And he's got to put his mask back on immediately, And I get Luffy's got the kind of, uh-oh, it's you. And he's just like, what? You know me, don't you? And I like how the whole setup worked in here, though, because as Luffy goes and lands inside here, you can go and you can see Duval, and he's sitting there because obviously he was given commands for the transponder snail, and it's not comfortable to always have a helmet obstructing your whole head, right, in your face. So he had the thing off, and as Luffy went and crashed in and landed there, he obviously has to go and throw it back on. That's what it looks like. And he's just like, oh, that's you. Wait, does he throw it back on? Yeah, he puts it back on. And then he's like, oh, you know me, don't you? So hopefully we're going to see in the next chapter who the hell this Duval actually is. My chapter question, though, if we could kind of wrap our minds around this over here, is what are your thoughts overall on the characters and the character design of the Flying Fish Gang? Again, to me, I don't want to say throwaway characters. I like the designs of them overall. They just don't really strike any type of fear into my heart, especially with some of the things that the Straw Hats have gone up against and some of the enemies they've gone up against in recent memory, just CP9 and of course Gecko Moria and Oars and everything like that. I just think in my mind, I look at these characters and I'm like, I don't care if there's 1,000 of them. I just don't see them taking down this well-oiled machine that is the Straw Hats now. And that's even with 2 newer characters, of course. 2 new crewmates joining in just the last 2 arcs, which would be Frankie and, of course, Brooke. But they've both integrated themselves very well. And that was the second part to my question. How do you think Frankie and Brooke are doing as far as integrating themselves in and becoming valuable members of the crew? Leave your answer to those questions in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. Or tell someone else to subscribe. Recommend it. Share the page. Do whatever it is that you like and what you feel good about. But anyway, we look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation. Thank you very much for watching. You come follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or other channel right now.